So yeah, my name is Taco. I always say with a first name like that, you don't need any last name. But it's a traditional Dutch name, so people call their kids Taco before the food got known. And there's still some 30-year-old something tacos around. Um, I live in Amsterdam. I have a 2-year-old at home, so I know a little bit how you guys are feeling with small kids at home these days. Lucky to have a separate office though, so that's very helpful. I'm in the Drupal community for 12 years, quite long. I think I missed my 10-year anniversary email, or maybe that got introduced later, but it went into spam probably. Um, we started out as a Drupal shop called Gold Gorilla, and a couple of years ago, 2014, 15, we had the idea of building a product on Drupal, because we saw that the platforms that we were building, and the expectations that people had when delivering a platform or something, or a tool or a portal or whatever, we saw that the expectations of our clients were running wild, and what we could actually do for the budgets was often limited. So we thought, well, we're just building things and features all over again and again and again. Why not try to build something that we can actually contribute back to Drupal, but we can also use all the investments from our clients to be put back into that project, and we don't need to rebuild a blog, again and again. So at the time we were at Drupal 7, and there was this Drupal distribution, for those of you who were around then, called Drupal Commons, which was working quite well. It was funded by Acquia, but then Drupal 8 was coming out, and we heard that Acquia was not going to fund the Drupal Commons project anymore. So we saw an opportunity to start a new distribution project that's called Open Social. I'll show a little bit more about that later. And we did a crowdfunding campaign, and we invested ourselves. So in total, we invested about €500,000, that is, in Open Social. And that went live in 2016 as a distribution on Drupal. So that's almost 4 years ago. It's crazy, and we just passed our 10,000 commit to the project. So you can imagine that's a huge project. And I'll just tell a little bit more about Open Social and give you some insights, because actually the project, Skills Development, we have been talking to them last year for a while to change their project. And then due to COVID-19, the goal of the platform was changed. So they were already building this community platform. Then they decided to use it for COVID-19. And then actually the project was put on hold. So we went live, and if you go to the platform now, it's very limited, because they're just overwhelmed there with requests at the moment. So for me to talk about the old use case doesn't make much sense, because it's changed the platform now and it's also not in use. So I honestly don't know exactly what the status is of this platform. So what I'll do instead is to talk a little bit more about why they chose Open Social, and also what Open Social could bring to you and your organizations, because it's quite amazing what we're doing. And we're trying to do everything open source. And I think we need to do a much better job in explaining people what you actually can do with Open Social, what our vision is. So I'm going to leave you with like a small demo as well, if that's fine with you. And I'm happy to answer any of the questions about skills development. But again, they changed the goal of the platform, and then we went live. And now they just don't have time to actually do a proper launch in the new format. So I think what they want to do is hold discussions around the future of the economy of Scotland after COVID-19, because obviously it's going to be a huge important deal. But for now, there hasn't been any conversation started on the platform. So they just don't have the capacity currently, because what I assume is that they need to do a lot of work with government and unemployment currently in their existing programs. But they just told us to hold, and we're actually not allowed to share the link to the platform on social media because they haven't properly launched yet. so we launched it, then we spread this word on social media. Duncan reached out, and then they were like, okay, please remove the links to the platform because we haven't launched yet. So we've all had these projects, right? I do hope that they'll launch fast, but let me instead just tell a little bit about our journey with Open Social, what our vision is, what you guys can do with it, and show you a little bit of a demo of Open Social to get a feeling about that. And please just interrupt me if you have any questions or remarks. So this will be a little bit more general story than what you were expecting. So sorry for that. Now I'll share my entire screen, and you are all muted, but if somebody can say if this is working out well, then that would be great.
We can see it, yeah.
All right. So for those who are not familiar with Open Social on Drupal yet, you can find it on /project/social. We actually had to buy this domain name. There was a module that was unused, and I really wanted to have this URL on Drupal, so I bought for like 200 euro the old module of somebody, and then you could use the URL. Sometimes it's a small thing. So we try to give as much of Open Social back to the Drupal community. On top of that, so for those who don't know Open Social, you can pretty much run Open Social out of the community. It comes with functionalities, with features, with configuration to build your own, communities, and that can be then set up as a volunteer community that's more external, or more of a intranet or social intranet that's more internal. And because we don't know how the Drupal community or you are going to use it for your project, we have to make sure that it's built in a very flexible way. So that means, for example, the notification center is pluggable. You can plug in your own notifications, whether it's likes or comments or reactions on new content type or integration with existing tools. So we always try to build Open Social in a very open way and also in a very flexible way. So we give away Open Social for free, as we always do in Drupal, but we also understood that we had to build a sustainable platform, because what we saw with Drupal Commons and also with other platforms was that if this only is depending on one organization and it's not the primary income model of the organization, or the organization goes bankrupt or decides to move on, then everybody that's using the project, and that's currently over 1,000, it goes up and down a little bit, but 1,300, so we're a bit over 1,000, then they're left hanging, which is what happened with Drupal Commons in Drupal 7 when Acquiesce decided to move on. So for us, it was always very important to build a sustainable business and a sustainable business model around Open Social. So we've done a couple of things, and I'll talk a little bit more about that before doing a small demo. So we built a software as a service around Open Social. That means usually when you have to install Drupal, you need to take care of the hosting, maintenance. If you have any questions in Drupal, you need to figure this out yourself. And what we can do is give you a installation of Open Social, and you don't need to worry about hosting, you don't need to worry about updates. And if you have any questions, we can help you to set up the platform. We do monthly releases. We do every month a small release, and then every quarter we do a big release with new features and bug fixes. So that's what we call our software as a service, where you pay a small monthly fee and you just get Open Social up and running. And on top of that, we have additional services that we sell to other users of Open Social. And then on top of that, we have extensions of Open Social, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But if you haven't tried out the Open Social installation, check out /project/social. There's some links to platforms where we won, or in Arabic. There's even a pitch deck that we just updated because we also want to help you win new projects. So you can just use our pitch that we use to sell OpenSocial to our clients, and then start selling OpenSocial yourself. I think some organizations are doing this quite successfully. And you can install it quite easily on Platform SH. So there's the whole deployment with Platform SH if you don't have the hosting experience, and you just need to pay them the fee. And we work with Composer, so yeah, it's pretty easy to set up a local installation and to run OpenSocial. I'm not a developer, I have to say that immediately. So if you have super technical questions, I can answer them until a certain point, but above that, I have to refer you to my technical guys who are much smarter than me. That is the open part that we do, and it's working really well. We found that a lot of organizations, because we had about money to build OpenSocial for 1 year, and after that we launched the first version, and after that we were really depending on other organizations helping us to further develop OpenSocial with us. So especially in the beginning, a lot of organizations said, hey, I need to have single sign-on, I need to have social login, where is the like feature? And then we said, okay, we can build it for you. It will cost you X. And we had a lot of great organizations who were willing to co-develop and co-invest to build OpenSocial out. And we're still doing that. So, for example, the UN, the United Nations, and especially their agency called United Nations Development Program, they've been a big sponsor of OpenSocial, and there's currently over 10 platforms that they run on OpenSocial. And they just keep on investing in new functionalities and new features. But also other smaller organizations like Potze, which is a nonprofit in San Francisco, they built a e-learning module for OpenSocial. So every time, we can do a lot of things out of the box. I usually say 80% of your project we can do straight away. And then the 20% that you are missing, we can develop it for you. And we're currently also doing this more and more with partners, because we're getting a lot of requests that our team cannot handle everything. And also we see a lot of requests coming in from local Drupal shop or local organizations that really want to work together with a local Drupal shop. So we try to match those as well. We just got a request in from Australia, and just in the time zone, it doesn't make sense for us to be developing this with a client in Australia. So we look for a Drupal agency there, and then set up a partnership. So this goes both ways. We can help you if you have a project, but the other way around, we can also help you to provide new clients, because we're getting a lot of requests for OpenSocial through our website and through Drupal.org. So before I move on, and also to check that I'm still there and you're hearing me, any questions about distribution?
Sounds good so far.
Yeah, great. Again, if you have any questions, just jump in. They will also give me a cue that the connection is still good. So on top of that, what we've done is launched getopensocial.com, where you're used to seeing this Drupal shop selling, okay, we have design, development, maintenance, we can do some strategy maybe, but we're really trying to sell OpenSocial as a product. So we talk about features, we talk about extensions, I'll show that a little bit more. We talk about how can OpenSocial be used. So it's great for, there were some university people here. We see this a lot being used for alumni, or corporate alumni, or just student engagement, and we have some universities also running OpenSocial. So instead of selling us as a service company, we really are changing that and saying, no, we are selling a product. And for us, that has been a difficult journey as well, because there's a big mindset change that you need to do. But currently we're getting great clients. We're working even with some kind of competitors like SAP, doing their user community in the Netherlands. And on top of that, what we've done in also to support OpenSocial is say, well, we can also extend the basic version of OpenSocial with additional, what we call in the Drupal module, but it's often more than that, because it can be a combination of modules or modules and configuration. Also, they're just ready for open social. And what we want to do is make sure that we can keep investing in expanding open social, in delivering on our roadmap, adding features. So selling the extensions helps us to create income. And we sell the extensions directly to clients, but we also sell them to Drupal agencies or to end users of Drupal that say, well, I like open social, but I need to have this Office 365 integration, or we really need to have this native app for push notifications. And we just ask them a small fee per month, and all that revenue is poured back into the development of open social. So this is always a bit of tricky thing in Drupal, because Drupal itself, we tried about module marketplaces, and as soon as you start talking about that, and I have done this, for example, DrupalCon New Orleans, people are getting very fanatic about making money with selling modules and stuff like that. We're trying this model. I don't think a lot of other Drupal companies are doing this. And we're being very open about it, and everybody knows that we have a pretty good standing in the community, and we're trying to give back as much as possible. But there's some developers here. Developers need to get paid, and I think they need to get a decent wage. Otherwise, they'll go to Microsoft or any of these companies. So we're trying to build a startup around open social. And it's really nice, because our developers can, instead of saying, oh, you have like 8 hours to build a feature, they can have the whole week to do research in how other platforms are doing this. They can build it. They can write their quality assurance testing. We have a lot of automated testing in place. So we always try to put as much back in the distribution. We're building a platform, for example, now for TED, the big video conferencing platform and conferencing. It's called TED Circles. That means they are setting up small TED communities where you can watch TED videos together and then discuss it later. So it's really cool. Everything they're doing for open social, extending events, extending groups, that's all just being given back to the distribution, and it's nothing of that. It comes into an extension. But for example, the native app functionality, which is actually getting your app in the app stores of Apple and Google, yeah, we are asking a small monthly fee for that. It's like €300 a month, which is not a lot, right? In terms of you having to do that yourself, it would be 3 hours of development, which is impossible to build this. So it's still a small fee. Gives you great value, because you have a native app for €300 a month in the app stores, which is great. Good for your user engagement, and it makes sure that we can continue to keep investing in open social. So this is also what we're trying to automate. So we have there's now, how do I get this away? To give you a bit of idea how we're doing things. So we have a basic version that doesn't have extensions. Then we have a premium that is with extensions, and then we have an enterprise version where we can customize more and integrate. And this basic and premium is fully automated in terms of deployment, but also in terms of adding these extensions, configuration, and updating them all. So we can actually deploy on different clouds, whether that's we're using Platform SH, and Pantheon. So you can choose where you want to host in Europe or in the US. You can even choose AWS or Google in this package, and we can still deploy the platform. So that means that a platform as the skills innovation space, we can launch now in hours. So it takes about 2 hours for us to set up the entire platform, which is still too much, but we're getting there. And other than that, it's just configuring open social. So, okay, how do we want to make sure people sign up? How do we create landing pages? How do we work with different menu styles, privacy statements, approvals? So the technology part of launching a new open social version, it will be hours, and soon it will be minutes. and then we will help you to configure the platform, um, which is like a big game changer, right? Because people think about Drupal projects of being complex, takes months, takes big budgets, big risks, complex issues, and we're trying to reduce that to a new normal where people want to have their things instantly. And that will be our goal, that people can actually set up their own platform themselves within minutes, and we will walk them through the whole onboarding process of configuring, changing look and feel of the site. So yeah, that's been our journey, and yeah, it's going quite well, and that means that we can keep on investing back in Open Social and keep getting more features into the core, but also, for example, moving towards decoupled. So we're starting this year progressive decoupling whole Open Social, where we will be working with React, GraphQL, and ReasonML. This is a new programming language of Facebook, and all these three projects are actually Facebook-led open source projects. So we can benefit from the content management capabilities and the user management capabilities of Drupal, and have the front-end capabilities of a Facebook, because that's still what our end users will compare us to in the end. If you can do something in Facebook, post a link and it turns into a video, post a tweet, it turns into a tweet. That's just the engagement and the user experience people are expecting, and it's up to us to come up with ways to deliver them that. So we're really raising what is the out-of-the-box experience of a Drupal installation. So before I'll give a demo of the platform, and that is usually taking, before I lose myself in that. So are there any questions so far on like these extensions or our business model or what we're trying to do?
I'm curious about how you price the extensions. Is it based on usage, or is it based on just kind of a one-time fee? Yeah.
Well, for us, it's really important to have this recurring fee. So we always charge a small fee per month. And in the startup world, it's always much better to have a small fee per month than to have a one-off fee. And just to give you an idea, we currently have a recurring revenue of 55,000 euro a month. That means even if we would stop doing anything now, we would still have 55,000 euros coming in every month, which means a big part of our team can run on that. On top of that, we do another 60,000 a month in services, building integrations and doing that. So we always try to get this recurring revenue. We look at two things in order to charge an extension. A is the amount of maintenance or ongoing development it costs us. So some modules we develop from scratch and we need to keep investing in them. Other modules we use Drupal modules as a core and we have to do less. So we have a rating for that. And the second rating is the value it gives to clients. Because we know if, for example, the native app, it gives push notifications and everybody loves to have their own app in the App Store, right? So we give a rating to that as well. And based on that, there rolls out a monthly price. So we're trying to do that in that way.
Thanks.
Yeah, so if something is very low value and low maintenance, I think our cheapest module is, it's not active, is the Google Translate widget, which is just a Google Translate thing. It's low maintenance and the value is so it's like 75 euro a month. So something like that. But the native app, I think, is one of the most expensive modules we have, also because you need to keep on updating these apps in the App Store every now and then. So there's also quite some maintenance and the value is high as well.
Can I ask how a couple of questions actually on that. First is, how long did it take you to get to that level of revenue? And I guess on that, was it like was it an organic process, or did you have to do a lot of like paid paid marketing?
Yeah, so it took us a long time to get to this level, and too long actually, but we still had to run our old Gorilla agency and at the same time build Open Social with our own money. So it took us 4 years in all to get to this level. So on average, we would increase by €1,000 every month. So that would be like signing one client every month, which is good, but for a real SaaS startup, it's a little bit low. Obviously, building this in an open source way, in a very flexible way, with the community behind us, that's much more complex. If you build a feature that you just build for your own clients, it's much easier to do than to build this for over 1,000 Drupal installations, where every mistake you make is felt by 1,000 organizations. So I think it's a longer and harder journey to get there. But once we are on this level, I think more people will start going to Open Social, and we can see the benefits of the community and the networking as well there. So yeah, it took us about 4 years. And the second part of your question was.
It was just around was that organic growth, or did you have to use a lot of paid marketing?
No, yeah, we do a lot of paid marketing. So we spend about €2,000 every month just on AdWords, and trying to increase our marketing team as well. So for us, we started out calling our solution Drupal Social, but as you'll see, we're not branding this as a Drupal platform or even open source per se, right? And this is kind of weird, but people don't care actually, right? They don't care it's built on Drupal with another Symfony. They don't really care. They just want great software. And if it's open source, fine, I guess. But in the end, we want them to choose us not because we're Drupal or open source, but just because we're just a great platform to use. So we are attracting a lot of clients that have never heard of Drupal or don't even know what open source is, and they still choose for Open Social because of its flexibility or its user interface or the amount of extensions. So our goal is higher than just attracting the ordinary Drupal crowd. And yeah, I think for any SaaS project, even though we're linking to Drupal, we're not hiding this, and a lot of our clients do know us from Drupal or open source. Some of them don't and don't care and just say, well, we're comparing you against Microsoft or Salesforce, so you just have to be sure that you're as good as them or better, which is a high bar. So yeah, spending a lot of marketing, and we're doing a lot of campaigns on Twitter and LinkedIn, AdWords, and conferences. We had a big conference year planned for this year, but that didn't happen. So I think we're going to start doing more outbound sales as well, because we see that we're a really good fit with nonprofits. So we want to do outbound sales as well. We haven't been doing that, and we want to do more with partners, because we see that a lot of Drupal agencies or other agencies doing more with communities like what we're doing, but they haven't heard of us or they don't know how Open Social works. So still a lot of work there.
Thanks.
Can I ask? I do apologize. Can I ask a quick
Sure.
question? I know that
Sure.
we need to move along, but
No, it's fine.
Sorry, I had a quick question about, do you face any challenges when you're selling your extensions? Do you have any challenges when it comes to, say, software licensing, or is it open source, or do you have to make them private source? Or I don't know if you're able to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, and it's also an internal debate. So in general, we open source them. And we have to, right? Because once they touch Drupal's code on the GPL, you have to open source them. There's different ways of doing open source. So some of our extensions are actually separate modules on Drupal. So we have the KPI analytics module, which is an extension, but it's also a Drupal module in itself because we think it can be used for other Drupal instances. Other modules are in the distribution of Open Social, and some extensions, they're just open source by opening our code in our repository. That means, you know, if a Drupal shop asks them, hey, can I use that extension? Well, first we ask them, hey, how about you sponsor Open Social because we really need your money to fund the project. If not, if it's a small nonprofit or something like that, or then we'll just send them to a repository and they can just use the module. So it is open source. We're just not promoting it as much as we're doing the distribution or putting it on Drupal.org. Because if we add it to Drupal.org, we also feel we need to, you know, make sure we can handle the support requests and those kind of things. So yeah, most of the extensions are actually open source. They're just not being promoted as much as Open Social itself. And again, you know, for example, EASA is actually not a direct client, but they just pay us for the extensions, even though they could get them open source. But yeah, they're doing big projects on Open Social. And that's just a way of making sure that we can keep on investing in the core of Open Social, even though they cannot buy the core products from us. So, you know, I think we're starting to see a bit of a change in this community. When I was talking about this for the first time 4 or 5 years ago, people were really like, no, it's wrong. And I think there's been a small shift also from how WordPress is doing things. If people know that they're selling the plugins, and I don't want to move Drupal to a system like that, because I see a big downside to that, like multiple plugins doing the same thing. But the amount of innovation they can do by selling plugins and asking, you know, 10, 20, 30 euro a year, they can fund entire project teams and innovate much faster than we can do in the Drupal community. And even some modules like meta tags with hundreds of thousands of sites, there are people still doing this in their spare time, right? So I would love to see them being able to work full time or work with a whole team on those modules. So we're trying to push the boundary as well a bit in Drupal for this. On the other hand, you know, we're very open source minded, and we don't have any like, even now moving forward, we're very, like, a big discussion is now with going decouples, because we know that it will be great for Open Social, but it will be hard for the community, because already the move from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8 meant now I need to understand more, right? I need to do PHP, but also Twig, and all these new projects are coming in, and it's hard for some people to keep up. So we understand that if we decoupled, it means you need to know things about the API, you need to know React, you need to know GraphQL. You know, that's big. And for us, it's also a concern, how can we open source this, maintain it, keep innovating, but also make sure that people still, you know, can join the project and contribute to the project. And that's, it's hard to find a balance there.
No, thank you.
Yeah, so, you know, I have a bit more than 15 minutes, but and if some people have to go, that's also fine. Let me just show you a bit what Open Social does out of the box. This is also in, because I know some of you will be on smaller screens like me. There we go. This is a platform we do a lot of demos. So the ISO, the Organization for Standardization, asked us to do a demo for them, and it's just good to use this environment because it has a lot of the extensions available. So what is important with Open Social is that we, and also if you're working with a platform like this, a lot of them are only accessible after the login. So they're really made for, like, intranet purposes, like Microsoft SharePoint is really made for in the organization. But Drupal is really good for, obviously, content managing. So making news or blogs or making great landing pages. So a lot of what we do also is about how can we make sure that, if we have an event, it's published not just in the community, but also out of the community. And that's also very different from like a Facebook, where they always try to suck you in the community. They want to have you logged in and sell you ads. And for us, it's fine that a lot of content is reachable out of the community. So whether it's a news page or events, and this is a landing page module that's part of Open Social Core, where you can just say, oh, I want to have a picture with some text, subtitle, buttons, and then a section with latest news, and then a section with FAQs. So this is just a very simple way of making a nice homepage or a deeper page that shows you how the platform runs. And yeah, this is this little module I told you about. I don't know, someone speaking a interesting language that we can test. Well, how about Gaelic? I'm not sure anybody speaks it, but it's just a nice module that works really well for international projects. We are making Open Social work multi-language now. So that means if you go, for example, to our project for Greenpeace, we actually built this with Greenpeace. So here it says Espanol, and then they also have all their regions. So you can say, no, I want it in Catalan, and the platform will actually change then to Catalan. So we're starting to do multi-language on Open Social. It's really hard because the platform has a lot of notifications and messages, and they all need to be translated. So you know, we're always looking for volunteers to help us translate part of the project, but it is possible. So especially in European context, it's nice to have this this capability. Then we use the groups module. So that is not organic groups, but it's the new module called, it's actually called group, which works a little bit different than the organic module for Drupal 8, because it works more on entity base. And it means we can decide for each group if a content is available out of the platform as well. So in this case, I don't see, I can just see the introduction. I don't think there's actually content in this group, so it's a bad example. But if I would add an event to this group, I would also be able to see this, even though I'm not logged in now. And I would also be able to sign up to the event. And you can set yourself if people without an account can sign up to an event. So I don't need to create a Drupal account. I can just leave my addresses, and I'm then still signed up to the event. But of course, it's interesting to log in because it's after all a community project. We support different modules, and we're developing different modules as well for single sign-on. So there's the really good SAML module, but we also now have Office 365 single sign-on. We have OpenID, we have Knack, which is some tool. And on top of that, we support social login. So login through Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. So it's really just, these platforms are quite complex just in terms of creating an account or logging in. But we support all of that, and we still need to do more content synchron or profile user data synchronization for single sign-on. So that's still on our roadmap, but the logging in through single sign-on works quite well, for example. I'm site manager, so you can see your very familiar Drupal here. And that's nice because the distribution does this out of the box. Actually, for our own clients, we built a different dashboard for them to set up the platform. So I am seeing this, but our clients in general see a dashboard that locks down a lot of Drupal functionality, so they cannot break the platform. And that's quite important, as you all know from experiencing Drupal. So we have to give them a lot of flexibility. Say, oh, can people sign up to an event anonymous, or how does tagging work, or what profile fields are enabled. So a lot of the things is done through the dashboard, and that means, yeah, we don't need to configure all of the platform themselves. So here again, I'm landing on the same page, but I could also set, for example, that I want to land in what we call the stream. And the stream is much more like a Facebook Facebook way of timeline things. So you could also use combination of things. Say, oh, I want to have a timeline that is completely personalized, but on top of that, I want to featured content to my community. And again, this is just the landing page builder that comes out of the box in Open Social, where sitting down with your clients or sitting down with your team, if you're an end user of Drupal, you can just configure the platform yourself and say, I want to have this and that. And our next step will actually be to use the Drupal layout builder. So we're having that now as well, where you can actually drag and drop and build your own dashboard. So this is like we know, right? So we looked carefully at how does Facebook do things, because sometimes a community needs to be where people just log in and understand, oh, I can post something to the community here, add my image, set the visibility and post it. Sometimes, especially volunteer communities, yeah, it's all about posting things and commenting and reacting to things. So for the time-wise, I'm just going to show you a little bit of the interesting things. If you post a tweet or a YouTube video link, then it's automatically turned into like a actual card of the social media. And then, of course, I can comment on it again. Some trackers are loaded for the privacy-minded people here, so obviously you can turn it off again. And then some of the extensions that we're building is, so we have the basic functionality that has news, blogs. There's no courses, then I'll show you ideation. But if you want to do more, then we have these extensions, for example, for communities that are all about crowdsourcing IDs. And in our extension, you can add different challenges to the platform. Each challenge is a group itself. So you can participate in the challenge, and challenge can have events as well. And next you can send in your IDs. So the cool thing is that each challenge, you can set up different phases. So this is again, all configurable, where you can have an ID submission phase where people can send in their IDs. Then you can have selection, you can have a voting phase where people can vote on things, and then you can select a winner, for example. So this is the crowd ideation module, and people can send in their own ID, and people can vote on the IDs. So it's a really good way of gathering a lot of information about certain topics and getting really good user engagement on the platform. So this is one of the modules. We have another module about courses, except I didn't set up a course at the moment. I can do it real quick because it's quite interesting. Again, I can choose, is a course a group in itself? So does it use the group module and it has its own event stream members? Or do I want to set up a basic course where it's not a group, it's just a very simple course? So there's some tagging involved here. I'll do some text here. Another thing we're working on, which is actually pretty cool, is this is CK Editor 4, which is in Drupal core, and we are working on CK Editor 5. And the nice thing about CK Editor 5 is that it comes with an additional service. It's paid, unfortunately, which is real-time content editing and collaboration. So I could work on this, and you could also be working on the same content, and then just in a Google Drive or Microsoft Office way, where you can make changes. I can see that, I can see your cursor. You can leave comments and it will pop up here. So we're actually doing that, especially also for this crowd ideation and around e-learning, for example.
Well, your clients, sorry to interrupt, but your clients have the option to kind of use the basic 4 option rather than the paid 5 option?
Yeah, we ship with in distribution is CK Editor 4, but we're just experimenting with CK Editor 5 now, and yeah, it's mainly because of this real-time collaboration.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so we're seeing some use case around ideation, but also around e-learning. So as your students could send in their answers, and you could make corrections in their text or leave remarks in their text. Which is really cool. because you don't need this expensive Microsoft licenses, and there are some costs involved, but it's much more affordable than getting all your students a Microsoft license. So we can set up an image, tab management. I'm getting a message from Zoom here, but I'm not sure what it is. I can set date and time. I can say if a course is sequential, non-sequential, related courses, that tagging. So right now I'm creating this course. So it's very red, but you get the idea. And next, what I need to do is set up different sections. So I can create a section in the course, and each course obviously has multiple sections. So this is then section 1, Lauren, and each section has different parts. So I can say, is this an article, is it text, is it video, or even if it's quizzing. And the quizzing extension that we built has built-in checks of multiple choice answers. It has a time limit, it has an amount of trying. So you could also add quizzing to that. But for the time's sake, I'll just add it. Part 1. And again, it's quite extensive. I can add attachments and images even to each of these sections. Save it. So you can build your own course and build your own sections in each course and build your own parts in each sections. And then you can go step by step through this course. And I can end with a quizzing part, or I can end just by finishing the course. And if I end the quizzing part, I can even get a badge on my profile, or I can get a PDF certification. So, very strong e-learning capabilities that we can add to Open Social. And we're constantly trying to see, okay, what is needed? Things like resource library, things like more complex discussions, courses, challenges, things like that, in order to build Open Social into this super rich platform that can be used for all these use cases like volunteering or students or intranet. And that's what we're working on and will be working on in years to come, hopefully. Looking at the time, I think they can answer maybe some questions. Getting some in-depth feedback from you is also welcome.
Cool, thanks Taco. Anybody got any questions?
So it was either very clear or it was very complicated.
Well, from my perspective, it was clear. Thank you. No, it looks good. It's been good to see around it. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, you can just try it out. I mean, if you have the development skills, you can try it out through Composer. If you don't have the development skills, you could even run this 30-day free trial on Platform SH. Or if you're interested, just as a matter of like hobbyism or interest, or you think it could be useful, we can also spin up an environment for you and help you to set up coloring, and then you can just use it. Currently around the coronavirus situation, if there's a project that is actually helping in the fight against COVID-19, we can give you 1 year of completely maintained Open Social for free. So if there's a project that is like really impacting local community, or something that has to do with fighting COVID, or fighting something that is related to the virus, then we can just help you there as well. Yeah, we're quite easily to reach.
Just a question on actually, just I noticed one of the extensions you touched on mentioning Microsoft 365 and the like. When you refer to integration there, is that in terms of full-blown log integration with the whole file management side, or is it more focused on things like the login?
Yeah, so because it's a big suite, right? It's Office. For now, we can do the sign-on. We can do the profile synchronization. so that's called Delphi. We can do Jammer. It's not the most obvious thing, but we did UN want to integrate with Jammer. And we have the working with files and those kind of things. That's on our roadmap. And I think this year we'll make additional steps there. There is actually already half a year ago, a Drupal module was released that does a lot of this heavy lifting for us. So we're working with them. We're now co-maintainer of the module, and we're trying to roll back more of this in OpenSocial, as we're moving with OpenSocial more to the collaborative working office, remote working environment, and that's actually going quite fast now. I think those investments will be done sooner than later. Also, like live chat, we're working on right now. Gamification, we're working on right now. Video integration, something we're looking at with the Drupal Association at the moment, because with this DrupalCon is going global and digital, so OpenSocial is being looked at one of the possible solutions for that. But then chat and video will be very important, and we don't have that yet. But there's some great tools to integrate with, so definitely looking into that.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, and again, I mean, for us, it's always the discussion. Okay, what can we give back? And we don't have any model around OpenSocial. And again, there's more than 1,000 organizations using OpenSocial. We currently have 35 clients, so hundreds and hundreds are doing this open source. And we just think with the extensions, it's a nice way of not putting like a heavy burden on any organization, but think about a model where, how can we make a sustainable open source project where some of the effort that we're doing and giving away is also coming back to the health of our organization. So it's also a new model for us, and we're happy that we're seeing the first results of organizations saying, sure, I just want the native app as an extension. I can do the rest myself, and I'll be happy to pay that amount. So on the other hand, we see very small organizations, and we point them to our open source repositories, and they run with that. So.
And we got any other questions? No, I think that is it. That was great, Taco. Thanks very much for doing that. That was, and I think we'll once SDS goes fully live, then we'll have you back to talk more about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much, everybody. We will see you at the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, stay safe. Bye.